Hey, this is Alexander, and this is going to be a demo video of the U.S. gun crime project that I completed with another classmate, Roshana Poderala, at the University of Florida for our Database and Information Systems class. This is mainly for people who are not at UF because the database is locked behind a VPN, so you will not be able to see the data that loads. You will, however, still be able to explore the front end. So let's dig in. My teammate completed the visualizations and rankings pages, and I completed the distribution and database search tool. I'll go through all of them in this order. First up is the data visualizations tool. It is essentially three sections, one for gun crime trends, one for demographic information, and another for gun information. Here we go. First up is a state comparison tool. This allows us to select another state to compare with, maybe Alabama and Florida. Here we go. The colors overlap a bit, but you can see the two there. That one's Alabama and that one is Florida. Then we have this national gun deaths by year trend. You can see some of the data is missing for 2013 and 2018. That is noted in a disclaimer up here. There wasn't really much we could do about that. It is just a anomaly with the data set. You can see there isn't really a trend here. It is sort of trending up towards 2017 though. Next up is some demographic information. It seems a majority of people who commit gun crimes are male, followed by unknown, followed by female. We also have some age range classifications for victims and suspects. You can see it's interesting, these two are sort of the same. The majority are in the age range of 26 to 64. Pretty neat stuff. Next up is the gun information. So our dataset contains information about whether or not a particular gun was stolen. Unfortunately, a majority of the cases, that information is unknown. Next up we have stolen, and then legal. Legal here referring to legally owned, i.e. not stolen. The stolen guns are 10 times more likely, and our conclusion is that it's probably because legally owned guns require background checks. So there seems to be a preference towards stolen guns, but of course we can't say that with confidence because a large portion is unknown. Next up is the rankings. So here we have 4 tabs. We're going to look at each one in turn. The first up is deaths per capita by state. You can select a year and it's going to basically rank the states by the number of deaths divided by the population of the state for that given year. So this is 2013. Let's look at a year with full data because again 2013 had data missing. Again, District of Columbia seems to rank first, actually especially even across multiple years. So yeah, sorry people in Washington DC. Next up is a ranking of the deadliest incidents. Up top we have the Orlando nightclub shooting. Down here is the San Bernardino one, and then the Charleston church shooting. The first one should really be the Las Vegas shooting, but it was excluded from the dataset by the people who scraped the data in the repo where we got this dataset from. So that's just another anomaly. Next up is deadliest guns. Often in statistics we hear that handguns account for most of gun crime deaths. That does seem to be true based on this data. We have then 9mm, shotguns, rifles, and then AR-15s, and some more niche guns that are involved in gun crimes more rarely. Finally is a look at some of the relationships. So our dataset contains a classification of participants based on their relationships to each other. Up top is armed robbery, so someone was being robbed. You also hear another statistic, which is that people are more likely to be killed, unfortunately, by people that they know or people that are close to them. That seems to be true here as well, because we have family ranked second, and significant others ranked third, followed by a home invasion where the two people don't know each other, and then we're back to friends, acquaintances, neighbors, and so on. These again are more niche categories down here. Moving on, this is a geographic distribution tool that I worked on. So our dataset contains latitude and longitude information for gun crimes. This allows us to plot them on a US map here. This is a nice little React library that we used. So we can go up here. The default range is for 2013, but again, there is some data missing for 2013 and 2018. Let's look at 2018 because it does have a nice balance in terms of rendering performance because it doesn't have too much data. It's going to load here in just a second. Takes a while because of rendering all of the markers. There we go. So yeah, all of the ranges that you look at actually are going to have this neat little trend. It's going to be densely populated on the East Coast, densely populated on the far West Coast, mainly California, and then very sparse in the Midwest. And I think what accounts for that is that the Midwest has a lot of vast expanses of farmland and wildlife. So it's not the most scientific conclusion, but just based on observation alone, that seems to be a reasonable explanation for why there would be fewer gun crimes in that region of the US. We can also look at, let's say, March 2018 for whatever reason. Someone might want to look at that month. So you see, again, the trend seems pretty consistent across even just months. Maybe we want to look at March 2016 to compare the two. Pretty eerie. They are very similar. So I think my hypothesis holds up. Is it true? I don't know, but seems like a reasonable explanation. Moving on is the database search tool. This is the second one that I completed. It's going to be loading it's going to be populating forms with data from the database. There we go. So this allows you, it's essentially a user interface to the database. You can query a lot of interesting things here. For example, maybe someone is interested in looking gun crimes that only involved minors. So they would apply this filter here, and the data will load soon. This one actually performs better than the distribution tool. It's a little faster. There we go. Up top we have some statistics like the number of crimes, people killed and injured, or the number of guns involved. And then we have this list of nice little cards that have overview information for each crime. These are sorted by date. Scrolling down we see 10 per page. You can change that. These are all paginated, so you can go to different pages and it'll render those cards. Each one also has an in the news link at the bottom that you can click and it will take you to an actual news article related to that gun crime. Here we see one from the Lansing State Journal. If you click a card, it will also open some details for the characteristics of that crime, the incident participants, as well as the guns involved. There we go. We see this one was a mass shooting with participants being wounded, shot, wounded, and injured. You can look at the ages to verify that these are all in fact minors, and gun data is unfortunately unavailable for this incident. That's just another anomaly in the dataset. It's not always available. You can look at one where it is available though. Yep. But again, even if it is available, there's no guarantee that the information is known. We can, however, look at some where it is known. Maybe we want to look at gun crimes involving shotguns, with all participants being minors. There we go. 86 in total for that entire time range, so not too many. Open this up and it will show one gun, and that gun has to be a shotgun. There we go. Not sure why it was taking so long, but there's a shotgun. Again, both minors. Okay, so let's get rid of that. Maybe people are now interested in looking at some of the more deadly gun crimes. We can do that as well. To do that, I will use greater than or equal to 9 for the number of people killed. Okay, here we go. This is the Charleston church shooting. Here we see the details. You can click, again, the news article. In this case, yeah, it doesn't seem to be a valid news article. San Bernardino one, and then the Orlando nightclub one. This one has quite a lot of participants, sadly. So it's going to render all of those here. This is what I found most fascinating about the project, actually. The dataset has a lot of really interesting information. So we see here it was in fact a hate crime, and it was also classified as having a terrorist involvement, because if I recall correctly, ISIS later claimed responsibility for that shooting. These are all the participants that law enforcement was able to identify, quite a lot. The suspect is somewhere in there. Guns involved AR-15 and 9mm. We can also click the news article link again to see one from Reuters. Here we are. Pretty sad, but yeah, so that about does it for that tool. And with that out of the way, we're pretty much done. So that was the web app. Thank you very much for watching. Again, I worked on this with Roshana Podrala at the University of Florida. Very, very fun project. I enjoyed this thoroughly. Thanks.